Blog Talk Radio.
Namaste, folks. Welcome to Nature Reality Radio on January 15th, 2016. This is your host, Andrew Fisher, normally broadcasting Wednesdays from the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, doing a Friday show today. We will be exposing, just like every week, exposing the true and false nature of reality for what it is and what it isn't. On the show today, someone who needs no introduction, Jordan Maxwell. It's only going to be an hour-long show today. He requested that, he said, I'm 75 years old now. I really can't do 2-hour shows much anymore, but believe me, I'll try to get him on for a second hour just like all my guests sometime in the future. But Jordan Maxwell, occult researcher, been around doing Illuminati research all the way back since 1959. His areas of most interest include astrotheology, sexual symbolism, and world religions, foundations of modern-day religion. I'm going off his website, by the way, jordanmaxwellshow.com. Don't go to jordanmaxwell.com. That show has been stolen. Not really going to get into that in this show, but he talked about that in some of his recent interviews with Richie Allen. If anyone wants to learn about that, check out the Richie Allen show. And he's doing a lot of interviews with him recently. But getting back to Jordan's areas of interest, secret societies and toxic religion, world mysteries, ancient and modern, ancient symbols and occult emblems, ancient sciences and technology, hidden Bible teachings and mysteries. Just a second, folks. I'm getting a call, and I cannot be bothered at the moment. So I need to tell this person I'm doing a radio show. Hold on. All right, folks. Sorry about that little problem there. But ancient symbols and occult emblems, ancient societies and technology, ancient sciences and technology, hidden Bible teachings and mysteries, the sun and the history of politics and religion, the story your church doesn't want you to know, secret societies and their influence on world events, and a whole lot more. But first, I will expect a call from Jordan in about a minute and a half. I told him 3:03 p.m. Pacific. He's going by Pacific time, but nobody in the queue yet. It's a Friday show. Don't expect much of an audience, but maybe that'll change. I'm not going to be taking any calls, by the way, folks. No calls on this show. It's only an hour. Maybe in a second show with Jordan, I'll take some calls at the end of that show. But for now, let's get to the news, courtesy of Alex Jones and Company at InfoWars. First article, U.S. President Hopeful Rubio vows to jail and try Edward Snowden for treason. Yes, this is a brainwashing tactic to get us to think that the NSA surveillance system is about national security when it's about nothing of the sort. It's about tyrannizing, controlling, predicting the future, so they can surveillance us, predict the future, and control us in that way, and blackmail anybody who poses a threat to the tyrannical Illuminati agenda. And I believe I heard that Ted Cruz has all of a sudden done a 180 and started calling Edward Snowden a traitor. He did that yesterday during the Republican debate. Well, I hope he's joking around. Ted Cruz seems to be a lot of liberty lovers seems to support him, but he's got some issues. He doesn't seem to understand national security. He doesn't seem to understand what that term actually means. It has nothing to do with security of the nation. And he seems to be going along with the system just a little bit, but he's better than most of them. Better than 99% of them, no question, but still, Ted Cruz is no Ron Paul. Ron Paul. If you're not like Ron Paul, you don't deserve to be a politician in Congress. And even Rand Paul's not like Ron Paul in some regards. It's kind of sad, but anyway, I'm digressing. Getting on, next article. U.S. Securities Commission finds Goldman Sachs $15 million over borrowed stock. Well, finally, it's nice to see that Goldman Sachs is getting in a little trouble, but $15 million, that's a slap on the wrist. They can just print that money out of thin air and get it back and totally cause inflation in the process. Really, really sick. Goldman Sachs, just a gang of bankers that want to rule the world. Control politicians to a great extent, more so than any other bank, I believe. J.P. Morgan Chase is the most powerful bank, they would argue, but they're mostly with getting us into debt. Goldman Sachs funds and controls the politicians to a greater extent than J.P. Morgan Chase. Our next article, that time the Clintons had their own water pollution scandal. Okay, I don't have time to get into this. I don't really know what it's about, but Hillary Clinton, she would certainly cause a lot of water pollution if she was president. Our next article, a global economy dead in the water. Yes, I did watch this 10-minute Alex Jones video talking about how everything points to a collapse of the dollar, and America would have to pay the ultimate price compared to other countries. Any country that uses the dollars as a currency would suffer, but America the most. But our next article, FBI says ISIS a threat in Texas. Well, the FBI is part of the government. The government lies to us so much, but considering the U.S. government opens the borders and lets ISIS terrorists in to destroy our lives, well, maybe they are a threat in Texas. They probably are, and the FBI is part of the conspiracy to let them in. Our next article: suspected Islamist storm hotel hold hostages in Burkina Faso. Yes. Is this ISIS and Al-Qaeda? Probably is. Don't have time to get into details because Jordan's going to call in. He probably called in now. As a matter of fact, let's check the queue. Yes, I see an area code 111-111-1111. That's probably Jordan Maxwell. Jordan Maxwell, is that you? You're on the air.
Yes, it is. And thank you for having me here.
Glad you could come on. You did say in your previous emails with me that you would if you wanted to discuss why you turned down the offer to come on my show in the past, but I don't think that's really a big deal. There's far more important things to talk about. I'm glad you came on, and a lot of people are glad to see you on Richie Allen. I've been checking the view count on all those interviews I did with him. They keep climbing, and I've listened to every single one of them just to help me prepare for this interview. But starting off, I think we might as well start this interview off with a little bit of a debate, get it off to a little bit of a bang here. Something that you've been saying for years about how you believe humanity, there's no hope for us unless we get divine intervention. We're just not capable of overpowering the powers that should not be. And, people would debate that. One guest I had in the past, George Kavaslis, told me that he said in one of his radio interviews, and I asked him about it. I asked him, how can you confirm what you said, that the New World Order will never be able to take over the world and fulfill its plot to global totalitarian government? And he told me, I have felt within my heart soul essence that Mother Earth at its heart soul level is a love-based entity, and that means that anything that is negative cannot take it over entirely. Now, it can come down hard at certain times, and there are times when the New World Order came down hard, like 9/11, and after they staged Sandy Hook trying to take the guns and all that. But in the end, they'll never be able to take over because Mother Earth is a love-based entity. And many would assert, well, Jordan, we are getting divine intervention. There's more than enough people out there from an extraterrestrial contactee viewpoint who would say that there's more than enough divine intervention to keep the New World Order from taking over with our guardian angels and spirit guides and such. And, of course, I remember you saying in your In5D radio interview way back in the day, the first interview you did, that you said the key to beating the New World Order would be to pray or ask. If you don't want to get religious, maybe ask would be the better word, our guardian angels and spirit guides for help. So do you think, yes, it may make sense for you to say, yeah, we're not totally screwed because, yes, there is divine intervention, and, yes, Mother Earth is a love-based entity?
Well, it's a big subject, and I would still say that because I believe in a great spirit in the universe that other people may call God. I don't know what God is. I just know it's not on television. And but whatever God is, and I've learned a long time ago, you need to define your term. So when I use the word God, it may not be with the same thing you're thinking when you use the term God. I'm using it very loosely. I don't even particularly care for the word God, but I do believe that there is some sort of overshadowing. I guess that's a better word, an overshadowing of life on the earth we're involved in. It's not just us, but there's something else that's going on around us. And even the Knights Templars used to have a theme that they call "as above, so below." And so I think that is true. There's no doubt in my mind that that's true, that there's something going on around us in the spirit world from out there, whatever you want to call it, as opposed to the mundane physical world we live in. Too many strange and unrelated and unnatural things happen, and there's just thousands of cases. I guess everybody in the world's had strange things happen to them. And so I've had way too many things happen to me, and I don't know if you want to attribute it to UFOs or aliens, but there's something going on that is not in our physical world and our little mundane world. There is a higher spiritual presence in life, and I appreciate that, and I worship it because the word worship comes from combining two words. Worship comes from worth, W-O-R-T-H, worth, the value of something. What is it worth? And of course, ship is a English word that's used on everything from rulership and courtship and so sportsmanship and all kinds of ships. Well, so worth combined with ship, worthship. No, you just drop it and it becomes worship. So all worship means is to show a high respect or value on something, whatever it is. So when I use the word God, I'm using it so that I can be understood by most people. But I don't believe in the God, the normal way people see God. I believe that there is a higher intelligent, spiritual presence in life. And there's just too many, there's just too much evidence of that. And things don't just by chance happen. And so, I believe in the presence of a divine spirit, for lack of a better term. But I am also aware that in history, there has never been a time when some great spiritual event happened that put down the evil, the totalitarian fascist dictatorships which come and go, coming and going all the time, with warlords and war and violence, and running for one guy's running for office. We just love him. He's going to be our savior. And then you find out he's nothing but a scumbag and a crook. And then we get another one in, and he's going to save us. And then we find out, no, he belongs to the same secret society as the other guy. And eventually, over thousands of years, we've seen nothing but tragedy and chaos and violence, and throw into that mix religion, cults and military engagements. And so I just go back and look at the past 7,000, 6,000 years of man's human history. When has there ever been a time when God or any spiritual presence in the universe, whatever it is, intervened, I think is a better word, intervened in mankind's natural evolution and did something to clean up this violence and bloodshed and wars and all of the stuff that the human race has been stuck with for thousands and thousands of years? I don't see it. I don't see anything. I know that there were, tales about some great lost empire, that was, maybe Atlantis or something like that, where everything was wonderful and holy and everyone was happy, and there was a golden age of man's connections to the divine. I don't buy that. I do believe that there's probably Atlantis that I think that's probably true. I don't think it was any better than we. Obviously, it was destroyed. So the bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, is in the 6,000 years, in the past 6,000 years, I have never seen in history anywhere where a God stepped in to protect the creation we call man. If man has such a wonderful, connection to its creator, where is the creator? More crime, white collar crime, and and drug trafficking and alcoholism and violence, and existed that at least made a stab at saying it wanted to do was the United States of America. It was a wonderful idea, and it divided governments into three factions and made sure that not long after it was founded, as far back as 1790s, 1800s, 1770s, 1780s. and by the 1800s, we were a mess. We were having people coming from all over the world who were fighting each other within the country, and but I don't think that maybe there's a possibility that maybe there was some sort of a spiritual intervention caused 1776 to happen, and got started on a halfway decent road to managing the human race and bringing some sort of stability and justice to the world. But that was quickly outdone by secret societies in Europe and the royalty, who was not impressed with we calling ourselves free. Freedom and liberty and justice. There is no freedom and liberty and justice to the royalty of Europe. There is no freedom. We own you, and you crawl on your knees, and that's the way it works. And if you don't like it, we kill you. And so that's why there was a great, revolutionary war and bloodshed. And so, but I've never really seen the spirit, whoever this God or spirit that is in charge. I've never seen anyone coming from space and aliens or gods and coming to help the human family. Where is it? I've never seen it. Now you can talk about the nation of Israel and the Almighty God Jehovah and all that. That's all stories. It's all based on ancient stories coming out of the Middle East, coming out of India. Most of what we call Judaism and all of the wonderful stories about the holiness of Israel can be traced back, if you just take a few minutes, go reading, can be traced back to India. India is the parent of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. All three can trace their lineage back to Hinduism. So again, I'm just stating the obvious, that when has God ever stepped in, or when has any spirit ever stepped in to help the human race? I mean, and so I don't see.
That's a fair question for you to be asking, indeed. Just I want to point out a couple of times your reception broke up, like for as long as 3 seconds on a couple of occasions. I do hope that's not the NSA or technical gremlins trying to screw around with us, but just so you know that. Too. Okay, but that did happen. But anyway, getting back to the interview, well, one could debate, it's pretty obvious what God is. God, the creator, whatever you want to call it, it is infinite consciousness. Now, where's the scientific proof for that statement to back up the claim that God is infinite consciousness? Well, we know that we can affect reality by either observing or measuring it, and we know that because of the double-slit experiment in Austria way back in the early 20th century. And we also know that every action that we do influences all of reality, albeit at small levels, and everything is a smaller part of the greater whole. And how do we know that? The mathematics behind the Mandelbrot set, the diagram of the Mandelbrot set. It looks like a beetle, and if you zoom in, you will see smaller and smaller Mandelbrot sets. But it goes into infinity. It's a finite area, but it goes into infinity, and that many would assert is a perfect representation of what reality is like. Therefore, you can make the assertion that God is infinite consciousness. Jordan, for lack of a better question, do you agree or disagree with that claim?
No, that sounds very reasonable, and I followed your point, and I think I would probably have to say, that's about the best I would say. I think you said it well, and so because there's a lot of science that can talk about both sides. There is no God. There is no special influence on the human race, while others. Scientists are saying, but there is, and Einstein saying that God doesn't make mistakes, and he doesn't play with the reality. Whatever it is what it is, and there's a science to it. And so basically what you were saying sounds about right to me. But on the other hand, what has that given to us in the past, say, 6,000 years or 7? And of course, we now know that there's life been on this earth for a long, long time. I choose to think billions of years to be. It's my belief that for billions of years there's been life on this earth. Other people, other scientists are saying, well, yes, maybe it's been 100 million years. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's been 1 billion years. But what is all, and there's no doubt in my mind, from what I've been able to talk with others who are far more, well read on this subject, about the ancient history of the human race. And there's no doubt in my mind that there's been extremely high civilizations that have existed on this earth for millions of years ago. And we are just, every now and then, we will stumble upon some sort of a artifact, some sort of an out of place artifact, or we're just now getting to openly talk about temples and great temples and great buildings under the ocean, off the coast of Cuba and off the coast of Okinawa, enormous temples in the ocean. I've heard about the pyramid that's on the ocean floor in the Atlantic, 10 miles north of Bimini. And the Bombax is a huge pyramid sitting on the ocean floor. We know that in South Africa, when they were drilling and going down to the earth, and they're mining way, way down in strata, which is even all the scientists agree that in strata at a particular depth, way down, is in the billions of years. And yet they were finding handmade artifacts in strata, which is billions of years old. So that tells me, well, somebody was here billions of years ago, because it's in the strata. And there's nobody on the earth that's questioning that the strata is 3 billion or 3.5 billion years old. Well, if everybody's agreed at that depth down, at that far down, it's 3.5 billion. Well, what are you going to say about the handmade artifacts that are being found at that depth? So there's no doubt that we've been, as far as I'm concerned, I'm totally convinced that there's been a highly intelligent, extremely intelligent, like on this earth, billions of years ago, maybe hundreds of millions of years ago. Life has changed on this earth. Who knows what creatures were there on this earth 500 million years ago? So I'm just saying that it looks like the flow of evolution, or the flow of the evolving of the story of life on the earth, a big mystery, a big secret. And with God, I have no idea. But I do know that there's something going on. But to bring it back to today, where we live, what we've got nothing but religion all over the world. We got all kinds of cults and religions, and Scientology and Jehovah's Witnesses, and Mormons and Islam and Catholic Church and Protestant religion. We've got all kinds of religion. All of them claim to be the whole truth, and everybody else is full of bull. But what is the fruitage that has been given to the human race? What is the fruitage of so many religions? Well, look around in the Middle East. That's a classic example. Then look around in America, where you have blacks against whites, and whites against brown, and brown against all kinds of religions fighting each other, violence, drug addiction, alcoholism, wars. This is what religions, this is the best that they can come up with, is total anarchy and violence and lies and deception all over the world, in every country. So where's God in all of this? Where is somebody who's going to come in to help, straighten out the human race? I choose to say I don't think there is one. There is going to be. There hasn't been anybody come in and do anything, ride in on a white horse and save the human race for the past 7,000 years. What makes you think that anybody's going to come and help us now? I think it's we're part of an evolution of life on the earth, but I don't think we have it in ourselves. I'm totally convinced, too, that the human race all over the earth, the human race does not have the ability to protect itself. I am totally sure of that we do not have the ability to stand up as one people on the earth, as a human race, and protect ourselves from the mob, from the bankers, from the corrupt politicians, to tyranny of the totalitarian systems of communism and Nazism and fascism and all of the other isms that are destroying the human race and causing people to kill each other. We as humans we don't have it. We're just are a mess in the history of mankind. And you would think that with the technological advancements we've made, and with all of the medical and all the rest of it, we would be more civilized. Well, point of fact, we're more civilized. We've only progressed in our ability on how to murder each other. We now can just drop a bomb and kill lots of people. We don't have to go out with bow and arrows. So, and of course, we don't even need to do that because we got governments spraying you with all kinds of poisons and giving you shots and filling you full of toxic chemicals in your food. So, where is God in all of this? I mean, I totally believe that there is a spiritual presence to all of this, but I don't know what it is. All I know is it's not on television. It hasn't got anything to do with Christianity, Judaism, Islam, or any other man-made cults, sects, and religions, which are actually nothing more than corporations and companies and money-making operations. And so if you want to really get serious, where is God in all of this? Where is there spiritual help? I choose to say there isn't. I think the only real help and hope for the human race is the human race. I think if we all got together and went back to school and learned how to read, and the government would leave the human race alone so that we could do our own thinking, and go back to school and learn again, as I said, how to read, how to think, and start educating the human race on how to live and the hygiene and how to live a clean life and a good life and raise food. I think that the human race is going to be the only thing that's going to save the human race. But if that be the case, for sure we're doomed. Because all I see around the world is ignorance, stupidity, people crawling on their knees to religions, jumping up and down and falling all over themselves in glee and happiness when a new president comes in, when the new government comes in. Everybody's happy. They finally got what they wanted, and then 6 weeks later they find out, no, it's the same old gang, same old group, and it's just the same. It's the same system. It's the law of gold. It's the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. And the people who run this world have had the gold thousands of years ago. And it's always stayed, like George Carlin says, it's a big club and you ain't in it. And so today, the whole human race is being guided by a handful of very crafty, highly intelligent, and extraordinarily brilliant, evil people who know how to manipulate the human race, lie to us, trick us, get us to kill each other, get us to turn upon each other. It's disgusting, but I don't see any hope for it. I don't, I'm not easily moved by these concepts of a golden age, and the age of Aquarius is coming, and it's the dawning of a wonderful age. I don't buy that at all. The age of Aquarius, if you look at the real astrological connections that people don't bring up when they talk about the age of Aquarius. Well, first of all, the age of Aquarius, in my opinion, is not going to be here for another 430 to 440 years from now. We're in the dawning of the age of Aquarius, but the sun hasn't rose Aquarius yet, not at all. And so we're just in the we're just beginning to see the light coming up from the sun entering into Aquarius, but it's not here yet. And from all indications, it's not going to be here for another 400 or more years. And then even given that, look at the astrological connections and the other astrological influences on the age of Aquarius, and you will begin to see Aquarius, if there's anything to this idea, is going to be a horrible time in the world to live. It's going to be a very, very evil thing that's going to happen to us, and we call it the age of Aquarius. This is what Adolf Hitler was looking to do, is prepare the world for the age of Aquarius. Well, there's a classic example. It's going to be a wonderful new world order. I don't think so. The age of Aquarius is going to have a lot of incredible evil connected to it, and it's always been that way.
Jordan, I need to interrupt you there, because one would say, well, that can't possibly be the case, because Akashic Records reader Andrew Bartzis has asserted, and one could make the argument that if Andrew Bartzis says it, then the Akashic Records say it, and if the Akashic Records say it, then it must be true. And by the way, I'm going to get back to that later in this interview. But he has said that the Archon control system, ever since 2011, has been cannibalizing itself and cannot stop cannibalizing itself. So how can you assert that we will be set for evil when everything that's causing the evil is cannibalizing itself?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, first of all, I don't know if I even trust those. That's his opinion. That's his words. That doesn't mean that because he said it, that's God's honest truth, right from the heaven. I would argue that okay, so he said that, and that sounds interesting. We'll see, but I've been looking at it for the past 75 years, the world history, and I've never seen anything in the Akashic Record or anything else that tends to make me believe that we're going to have a happy future. As far as I'm concerned, and I've said this before, the only light at the end of the tunnel is a train coming. I don't see the human race in a glorious future. Not at all. We're seeing nations being flooded with immigrants coming in with idea of how to destroy civilization, wars between the great religions of the world, food, the scarcity of food and water, clean living conditions. If you want to be practical and honest, I don't care what somebody tells me about the Akashic Record. I'm looking at the world scientifically speaking. We're in trouble. The whole entire world is in trouble, and I think we actually see that, and there are a lot of people who are now finally owning up to that there's no God coming. There's not going to be any second return of a great Savior who's going to save anybody. It's very difficult to make a return when you've never been anywhere to start with. So how are you going to make a big comeback if you never were to start with? And so when you begin to look at the religions of the world and the history behind the great cults, and that's all this is. And in fact, cults. It was the Islamic cult, the Ishmaeli cult, that we end up calling it Islam. No, it's Islam. It goes back to Ishmael, the Ishmaeli cult in the Middle East, and then the three religions, what we talk about, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all from Abraham. Well, we know. We don't suspect or think. We know Abraham never existed. It goes back to India, and all the reference books talk about the whole idea of Abraham is based on the Brahmins, and the Brahmins was in the Brahmin religion was Saraswati. So you have a Brahmin and Sarah. Saraswati was a goddess in India. So there was no Abraham or Sarah. There was no King David or King Solomon or Jesus or Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There was none of these characters in the Bible and the Western civilizations, holy books. None of them ever existed. So consequently, from my point of view, if that's the case, which it is, and we're now slowly but surely beginning to figure out the fact that our religions are given to us by the same people who gave you your civilization, your churches, your government, your banks, your insurance companies, your educational institutions. They also give you your wars. And it looks like the whole entire world of humanity has been orchestrated into the mess that we are finally in, because we as humans tend to believe our leaders. We tend to want daddy or mom to take care of the bills and take care of everything, and so we can just drink our beer and watch basketball and have go to the zoo, while the real people who are in control are anything but human. They don't give a damn about the human race. We're talking money. We're talking business, like the mafia. So at the top of the world, the people at the very top are very extremely evil people, very evil. And whoever rises in a dog-eat-dog world, whoever rises at the top has to be the meanest dog on the block. So when you see America as the most powerful nation in the world, how did we get here? Well, we didn't get here by reading poetry and helping the poor folks and helping feed grandmother. We got here by military. When any kind of a war breaks out, America goes in and kills everybody. We kill it all. That's how we're big. That's how we became powerful, and that's how the Catholic Church became powerful. Powerful influence in Europe. Why? Go back to the Inquisitions. Go back to what was going on back in the 12th, 13th, 14th century A.D. What was the church doing in the 1500s? My God, when you find out how many people were being murdered, their heads cut off, and children having hot lead poured down their throat in front of the parents because they would not conform to Catholicism. It was an incredible time of violence and pornography that the church was trying to foist on the people of Europe. And the people who fought died horrible deaths, being burned at the stake. So as far as I'm concerned, when I look at the world, not fool, not stupid. And I know that there are good people in this world. There are good people and there are good organizations. But the bottom line, after everything is said and done, the powers of this world, business, like the mafia says. So I don't see the business of living getting any better for the human race. All you got to do is look around at the world, not just the Middle East. Look around at the entire world. Human race is in trouble big time. And now the problem is that you can't fix any problem if you don't know anything about it. And that's why Americans, for instance, have no power to do anything, period. Americans ultimately have no power to change anything, period. Why? Because they have no power. And power is knowledge. Knowledge is power. The American people do not know how things work. They don't know how a government works. They don't know who writes the laws. They don't know what a court is. They don't know how governments operate. They don't know where the military comes from, the military industrial products. They don't understand anything about it. All they know is that they're told what to do, and they're frightened to death. So they do what Tiberius Caesar and the emperor wants, and the emperor is merely representing powerful secret societies behind the throne, just as Caesar in Europe was doing that. He was representing the powers behind the throne. Well, so is today. The governmental system in America, it merely represents. It merely goes out in front of and represents the figurehead. The real power is behind the throne, which is money. International fascist money that goes back hundreds of years, going back to Europe, going back to France and Germany and the UK. All of this goes back hundreds of years of powerful people and powerful families. So until America wakes up, gets an education, and the people all stand up together, and say, we're not going to let history go on like this. We're going to stop it. Nobody's going to do anything. Nobody knows how to stop anything. Nobody even knows how would you know how to stop it. So I'm just saying that's my view. It's just a personal view, but I've been looking at the world for over 75 years, and I'm totally convinced we as humans on the earth cannot and will not ever be able to clean up our civilization on the earth. It's just not there for us. We're too formed, self-centered, egotistical, generally dim-witted, don't have the IQ. We don't have the moral integrity and the scruples and whatever it takes for humans to stand up and say, no, we're not going to let people sleep under bridges and die for starvation while military spends billions and billions of dollars on bombs to kill people. But nobody's going to do that. But they can. You'll get thrown into prison. So I'm looking at all of it. Like I said, I've been looking at it for 55 years as a science. 75 years I've been living in it. I'm totally sure. There's no doubt in my mind that the human race cannot extricate itself from its problems because we don't know how anything works, and we've been demoralized and immoral until we are now amoral as a country. Sure, there's a lot of good people in this country who have high morals and ethics and want to help, but that's a handful. We got 350 million people, of which I would say at least 85% couldn't care less. As long as the ball game's coming on and the beer's cold and they got a job and they can drink their beer and watch the ball game and do what they want to do and go party, they don't care about what truth is. They don't care about truth and honesty and decency and legitimacy in government. Who the hell cares about that? All we care about is get the rent paid and make sure we're going to have a party tonight. We're going out to entertain ourselves at the hotel and the bars. And so, I mean, I just sit back as an old man, 75 years old, but I'm not stupid. I know where we're going. The whole of civilization is going under. And the reason why is because we've lost our way. The Bible says, where there's vision, people die. Well, the country is dying. The people are dying. We're all dying. We've lost our government. That's a long time. We've lost our job. We've lost our industry. We've lost our money. We've lost our freedoms. The only thing left for now to lose is your mind. And now, of course, we're now seeing America's losing its mind, killing people, murdering, violence, all kinds of men beating their wives and children and kids on drugs, shooting each other. The whole of this civilization in America is so corrupt and so far gone. And so thank God we've got military police, which are heavily armed to beat the flying crap out of anybody that doesn't get in line with what Tiberius Caesar has ordained for us to do. So once you begin to look at the police state, the fascism, the Nazism, the communism now in America, and the totalitarian fascist rule of the earth by secret societies and fraternal orders and powerful people, I don't see the world getting any better. That's just an old man's opinion.
Well, a lot of people hope you're wrong, and let's switch gears. Just so you know, there's 16 minutes and 25 seconds left on the live feed. We could go a little past an hour if you need to finish a thought or something, but there's two researchers I'd like to talk about who have researched stuff from Earth's antiquity. Maybe take 8 minutes for each, and then maybe we can call it a show and then talk about maybe getting you on for a second hour sometime in the future. But first researcher I want to talk about, David Talbot, the author of The Saturn Myth. You've talked about in the past how you've researched his work. You think there's something to what he's saying. And, of course, David Icke in his presentations has popularized the idea that Saturn's rings are synthetic and crystalline, and they broadcast some sort of energy that the moon allegedly, which is artificial, the moon, it amplifies it down to Earth to keep us in this matrix. And Norman Bergrun is author of the book Ringmakers of Saturn. He's also helped popularize that idea. But and specifically with David Talbot, the thing about Saturn symbolism, it has been said by many, including David Icke recently, that a lot of what we thought was sun symbolism is actually Saturn symbolism, and some of the things that we thought was symbolism of like something else, like the symbol of Islam, that crescent above the star. Like some thought that was the symbol of Venus, but some say no, that's actually a Saturn symbol because as David Talbot talked about, Saturn used to have like a crescent around it that was caused by the explosion with Saturn, so that has brought the idea that maybe a lot of crescent shape above like a circle or a star in symbology is Saturn symbolism. So what's your take on the idea that David Talbot may be right to a great extent, and a lot of things that we see is actually Saturn symbolism, and we should change our view on that?
Well, I think that, first of all, it's interesting you should bring up David Talbot, because I actually helped finance with a lot of money back in the mid '90s. I think it was in '95, and I was a partner with David Talbot in presenting a major expo, I guess you would call it, on the Saturn theory and on the Saturn work. I was in Portland, Oregon, back in 1990. I had quite a bit of money. It wasn't my money, but I was working for a company where I had the ability to write checks on the company, and the company had deep pockets. So I gave quite a large sum of money to David Talbot. He came down. I gave him the money. Then I hosted the whole conference for him. And I sat there for days before the conference and days after the conference with David in his office. And so I know quite a bit about David Talbot and his work. And I think David Talbot's work and the work of that whole Cronia group is absolutely phenomenal. I think they are right on top of the real stuff that was going on. There's no doubt in my mind David Talbot himself was an extraordinarily brilliant researcher, author, and the people he has around him are equally as highly intelligent, and so I have nothing but the highest of regard for David Talbot, the entire Cronia organization. I helped finance one of their biggest operations, and was a host of one of their biggest projects. So I know them well. And I have nothing but high praise for David Talbot and an entire group that he works with. I think they're really on to something for sure. So I would highly suggest everyone find out about Dave Talbot. Go on the web and find out about his videos and his company and what they're doing. And there's a lot of research books that they have put together that you can buy from them. And so I have nothing but the highest regard for David Talbot and that whole idea of the Saturn thing. And I know personally for a long time, been very close friends with people who have worked on this kind of information. And what was his name? The ring makers of Saturn, can't remember it right at the moment.
Norman Berggren.
Norman Berggren, right. Norman, I have sat for hours and talked about his work. And he has shown me pictures, and he had in his briefcase. We sat and talked for hours up in San Francisco. So Norman Berggren, I consider to be an extremely brilliant man, working with NASA at the time. So, and this whole idea about Saturn being possibly a dish, we know that the rings around Saturn are artificial. And from what Norman Berggren is saying, and others, not just him, but others are saying that there is something going on with Saturn. There's something happening in Saturn, that we are seeing strange things on the planet as we went by it. So, and even 2001 Space Odyssey, it talked about the moon, but actually in the book, it was about what was going on the planet Saturn. So, yeah, I think Norman Berggren's work is very important. I think that that whole Saturn idea, the whole Saturn thing is very legitimate. I'm very impressed with their work. I've always have been. That's why I gave them the money to start with, because I had been following him. That first book, The Saturn Myth, was extraordinary, brilliant stuff. So that's my feeling about the Saturn myth. I think there's a very, very, very legitimate, all the things that they are bringing out about the planet Saturn. So that takes care of that subject.
Yeah. I think so. There's definitely truth to it too. Just 10 minutes and 15 seconds on the live feed. If anybody wants to listen to the show after that, they would have to call in. The number is 646-478-4747. But we're not going to go long past an hour by any means. Only a few minutes. One last researcher of antiquity that I want to discuss with you. This will end this show with a bang for sure. Well, before I mention his name, I want to point out that Akashic Records reader I mentioned earlier, Andrew Bartzis, in a 15 or is it a 20-part series of interviews that he did with Lance White back in 2013 in part 2, he made a revolutionary statement that flat out revolutionizes the way we look at human history on planet Earth and also the layout of our solar system. And that statement was, Zecharia Sitchin's first 3 books are extremely accurate. In other words, yes, there is a planet Nibiru in a 3,600-year elliptic orbit in the solar system. Yes, there is a race of human-like Anunnaki extraterrestrials that come from that planet. Yes, those Anunnaki came to this Earth over 450,000 years ago and genetically engineered humans about 300,000 years ago by combining their DNA with Homo erectus DNA and used us as a slave species. And, well, I was originally very confused about this because I remember hearing some people say some very inauspicious things about Zecharia, who I know you've talked about having worked with before. And those things, 2 things in particular. Leo Zagami, a former 33rd degree Freemason, said in his Project Camelot interview that Zecharia Sitchin was a CIA and Illuminati disinfo agent who got information from the Vatican. And Arizona Wilder and David Icke's Revelations of Mother Goddess documentary, she actually said she saw Zecharia Sitchin at satanic rituals and that he was actually a shape-shifting reptilian. And David Icke said, well, maybe that is why back in 1998, Sitchin warned me in a conversation I had with him not to talk about the reptilians in my work. And I decided when I met Andrew Bartzis at a conference in Florida a couple years ago, I decided to settle this once and for all. So I went to Andrew Bartzis and I asked him, okay, and I told him everything I just told you, and I said, so how could Zecharia Sitchin have been accurate if he was literally a reptilian disinformer? And Andrew Bartzis told me, now take a deep breath, we're going to jump off into the deep end here. He told me that entities known as timeline watchers, they actually, in an attempt to disinform humanity, intermingled with Leo Zagami and Arizona Wilder's spirit body and physical body in such a way that caused them to think they were on an alternate timeline, which caused them to believe lies about Zecharia being a disinfo agent that they thought was true. And believe me, I do wish the world wasn't this complicated, but hey, it is, and it's my job to bring this to light. And well, this is revolutionary in many ways because it changes the way we look at like the missing link and the existence of Nibiru and all that. And by the way, if anybody's wondering how the Anunnaki could survive on Nibiru when it's so far from the sun, Tolek, Andromeda Council contactee, in my interview with him, he said that Nibiru has some sort of a perpetual internal heating system that allows for life on that planet, and Nibiru has some sort of an electromagnetic shield that allows for it to survive the life on it as it goes through outer space, the far reaches of space. That changes the way we look at like how seasons on planet work, how hot or cold a planet is in relation to its whether it has anything to do with how far it is from a star. But since you worked with Zecharia, I know that this must be kind of jaw-dropping for you, and well, I can understand why they would go to such great lengths to discredit him, since a lot of people have shown research that the Anunnaki that he talked about are near the top of the ladder of the Illuminati ladder of authority, as are the reptilian aliens. They even talk about an alliance many years ago with the reptilian aliens and the Anunnaki, some do. But now that I've brought this to your attention, are you willing to like maybe change your research a little bit to accept Zecharia a lot more seriously? His work?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you've ever followed my comments about Zecharia. I was in business with him. I actually was in business with him and helped him with his books and the sale of his books and I got Zecharia to speak on different radio shows, got him to speak at conferences. And I went with him on many occasions to his conferences. I called him back in 1990s, mid-90s, and asked him to come out to San Diego to come and meet me. I had something to talk with him about, and he did come out, and we talked about a business deal where I was going to finance a 13 one-hour television series on him, and we signed a contract and we agreed. I gave him money up front, and and then I sent him to different countries. We were going to send him to 7 countries. I think he only actually ended up going to 4 countries, maybe 5. I don't recall exactly if he went to Israel or not. But I do remember there was at least 4 countries we sent him to with our camera people, etc. So I was in business with him, and I wish I could tell you, which I would not, but I wish I could tell you some things that would turn your hair white about Zachariah Sitchin that I knew because I was in business with him and had private conversations with him. And on occasions, I've had some extraordinary conversations with Zachariah when, for whatever reason, he let his guard down and told me certain things that absolutely blew me out of the chair about himself and about what he's doing and about where he's getting his information, et cetera, et cetera. And it was so extraordinary and so incredible and fascinating. But I just would not want to do anything that would cause people to think badly about Zachariah Sitchin, because I considered his work and the man himself, because I was in business with him. I knew him. And he was always a very honest, very decent, very intelligent older man who, as far as I'm concerned, knew what he was talking about. And so I have the highest regard for Zachariah Sitchin. Always have. Financed him, I gave him money, and wanted to do projects, big projects with him because I was so impressed with his work and with the man himself. I met his wife. She came out too. She stayed out with us in San Diego. So, but I would say that I do know a couple of things about him that he told me that absolutely knocked me out. I was absolutely blown away when he told me certain things about his personal life. And so, but I would not want to talk about that because it would be too, it'd be destroying firecrackers into a fire. And, but suffice it to say, even after hearing what he said to me in private, I have the highest of regard for Zachariah Sitchin. He was nobody's fool. He knew what he was doing. And I think that people who badmouth him and who say that he was wrong on this, wrong on that, I think these people are wannabes. They wanted to be Zachariah Sitchin, but they can't be Zachariah Sitchin. They don't have the education. They don't have the background. Not the man. They never have been the man. They're the man now. They're never going to be the man. But I worked with the man. And as far as I'm concerned, Zachariah Sitchin was one of the most incredibly brilliant authors, and so I have nothing but the high praise for the man and his work. But having said that, there are some really extraordinary things about Zachariah I don't think the world knows anything about. And so, but again, as saying that, knowing what I know, I still say he was absolutely sensational. I have the highest regard for him. I just know some other things about him that other people don't know. And I'm not about to talk about it because it's not really important. I'm just telling you. I had a chance to see the real man behind the scenes, work with him, travel with him. And as far as I'm concerned, he was very, very legitimate and very good at what he did. So that takes care of Zachariah Sitchin. And there's a lot of other people that I have a very high regard for that we could talk about maybe on the next show.
Yeah, I'm glad. Glad you would like to come on in the future. And I guess we might as well end the show. There's only a minute and 20 seconds left on the live feed by discussing a possibility of you coming on sometime in the near future. To tell you the truth, I would prefer to not upload. I upload all my interviews to YouTube, but I would prefer if we could wait until I do another interview and then combine this interview with that one.
Of course.
And then upload it on YouTube. So,
but what I would like to say, look, I don't. That's fine. I don't care. Do whatever you want. What I would like to say is that I have a website, Jordan Maxwell Show, SHOW, JordanMaxwellShow.com. That's my website. You're hearing my voice. And I'm saying my website is JordanMaxwellShow.com. And on that, if you go to Jordan Maxwell Show, you will see above my picture, you will see a research society. All that is I now have a second website upon which I'm downloading all of my research over the years, everything, the pictures and documents and all kinds of stuff that I've never shown anyone. So if you want to be a part of the Jordan Maxwell research, go to Jordan Maxwell Show and join the research. It's called Research Society, but it's just my new research website. And so, but there's also a website out there called jordanmaxwell.com. Stay away from that. That has been stolen from me. It's not me, so don't buy anything from it and think you're doing anything with me on jordanmaxwell.com. It's not me. It was stolen from me. You want to talk to me and hear my research, jordanmaxwellshow.com. And thank you.
You're very welcome, Jordan. Hang on a second. Oh, come on. Jordan, hang on a second. Come on. Yeah, Jordan, sorry, I'm still here. It took forever for the mute button to unmute there. But, yeah, so second show, is there any way either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday of next week we could do a 1-hour show at this exact same time?
Of course, absolutely.
All right, Wednesday work for you because that's my normal airtime?
Yes.
All right.
Yep, sounds good. You email me so I don't forget.
Okay, I will definitely do that, and I will have that show ready probably by Monday night is when I'll have the link for that show. But you don't have to know the link. You just have to know the show call-in number to get on. So I'll see you 3 p.m. Pacific time next Wednesday. Talk to you later, Jordan.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye. All right, folks, that is the end of this show. Sorry for all those people in the queue there. I couldn't possibly take calls because it was only an hour show. Maybe in the last 20 minutes or half hour, the next show with Jordan next Wednesday, we will take calls. And as far as next show goes, I will be having a show next Tuesday with Bernard Gunther. He couldn't do a Wednesday show, so that, lucky for us, makes room for another show with Jordan next week. So Bernard Gunther next Tuesday next week from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, and then Jordan Maxwell the very next day, Wednesday, from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern. That's the end of this show. Namaste, everybody. This is Andrew Fisher signing off. Enjoy the rest of your trek to infinite consciousness.
Blog Talk Radio.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Nature of Reality Radio. It is Wednesday, January 20th, 2016. This is your host, Andrew Fisher, normally broadcasting Wednesdays from the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to expose the true and false nature of reality for what it is and what it isn't. We're only doing a 1-hour show today. Jordan Maxwell is the guest coming back to do the second hour. I always like to give my guests at least 2 hours of showtime on this show. Talked about a lot of interesting things on the show last week. This past Friday, we'll talk about a whole slew of different things on this show. Well, not a whole slew. We've only got an hour, but we will try to make the most of it. Try to stick with a few law-related things and maybe a couple astrotheology-related things as well in this show. We'll see how it goes. Jordan will be calling in a couple of minutes. Excuse me. I just want to make sure I can get his website uploaded here so I can use it as a guide. Not that I don't know what to talk about. It just I like to always put this stuff up, so it'll always help me guide me through an interview if I ever am at a loss for a thought or something, lost my train of thought or whatever. Here it is. Okay, but first, as usual, we will start with the news, courtesy of Alex Jones and company at InfoWars. Breaking: Feds admit to stealing land and money. Federal employees admit to predatory land grab. Reports on unnerving footage in which the feds are caught red-handed admitting to a predatory land grab. It's video, actually. You guys might want to check that out. It's certainly interesting, to say the least, that the feds would admit to that. Hopefully that'll wake a few people up. But then again, like Jordan said, a lot of people are apathetic and don't care, and care more about watching football and basketball and all that other stuff than they do about these important things, like the government confessing to crimes like this. So let's, I guess, try to get this video out to as many people as we can so people will learn the truth. All right, next article, video, how Monsanto's glyphosate attacks our core cellular functions. Well, for some people, this may be preaching to a choir, but then again, glyphosate, you don't hear as much about that as you do GMOs, so maybe I guess this is a video worth checking out. But anyway, I've only got 5 minutes to do the news, so I got to do this on the fly here. Next article, U.S. quote-unquote takes control of Rumelia airfield in Syria. Okay, I must actually plead ignorance. I don't know what Rumelia means. That's spelled R-M-E-I-L-A-N. Never actually seen that word before, but if it's a top story on InfoWars, it must be of some inauspicious significance. So people may want to check that out. Next article, gun control keeps criminals safe from you. Yes, that is right. If you keep the guns from the general public cannot own guns, the government takes them, then the criminals who will be able to get guns off the illegal underground market, which the government controls to a great extent, ironically, but not surprisingly. Ironic, but not surprising. That's a paradox if there ever was one. This is a no-brainer. Don't let us then take the guns, because then they will inflict tyranny upon us, and the criminals will be able to commit crimes more easily. Next article, suicide team sent by Pakistani Taliban faction assaults university. Yes, was this a plotted by the United States government to some degree? Well, it was, but to what extent they knew about this, or was this just some crazy Muslim who thought he was fighting for Allah, never realizing that the U.S. government is controlling him? Yeah, a lot of people in ISIS and Al-Qaeda are like that. They're just brainwashed crazy Muslims who think that they're just doing a crusade, a mission in the name of Allah, and are completely ignorant of the fact that the U.S. government and the New World Order, for that matter, is controlling them. This could have been the same thing here. Don't have time to get into it, but just want to point it out. Next article, Iraq's oldest Christian monastery destroyed by Islamic State. Yes, getting back to what I just said in the past article, a lot of crazy Muslims who don't know what they are doing. Well, they know what they think they're fighting for Allah, but the U.S. government is brainwashing them. And I mentioned yesterday that Albert Pike talked about how he wanted the powers that be wanted a third world war, and he mentioned it would be in the Middle East and having a lot to do with a war of sorts between Christians and Muslims. So Islamic State destroying the oldest Christian monastery in Iraq, yeah, that might cause a little bit of tension, unfortunately. But enough of that. I believe this is Jordan Maxwell in the queue. I just want to let you know, folks, in maybe the last 15 to 20 minutes, if anybody wants to call in, I will be taking calls. Just got to give it really quick. If there's a lot of people, just get your question, and then we'll answer it, and then we'll have to move on to the next caller. But anyway, enough of that. Jordan Maxwell, is this you, or you are on the air?
Yes, I am, and thank you for inviting me. Yep.
Yes, I wanted to give you a second hour, because I always try to give all my guests at least 2 hours, and with you, 1 hour would definitely not be enough with all the great work you've done for us since 1959. But switching gears from the last show, I do want to try to talk about some different things on this show, and I think we didn't really talk about the court system too much in the show, in last week's show, so I'd like to bring it up again. The whole thing you've talked about, the birth certificate straw man thing, and how they make you a corporation. A lot of people would debate as to whether or not it's really necessary for society to know that, because, I mean, if you look at it at a more basic level, what exactly are the Maritime, Admiralty, commercial law courts doing? What they're doing is they are alleging that you committed some sort of an infraction while operating in a commercial capacity over which there exists some governmental regulatory authority. Now, the statutes and the codes, they are all written in a very confusing, tangled up manner, and to make it appear, they look like they say A, but they actually say F, because the legal definitions of words are always different than the standard English dictionary definitions of words. So one would say that the best way to fight a case, if you're being charged, anytime you don't do any harm and you're being summoned to court, they are going to charge you with some sort of a statute or a code violation, which there is some commercial nexus. There are always going to be some sort of commercial nexus to that, and one would assert that the best way to win your case, without question, the best argument possible is to object to the commercial nexus. And because you're disavowing being in commerce, therefore there's no grounds for the courts to charge you with some sort of a crime. Now, that being said, many would assert, well, yeah, but you still should know how the birth certificate straw man thing works, because if it goes really far down the rabbit hole, as people like you claim it does, then it would be in our best interest to know how the whole system works in order to defeat the powers that be. So why don't you enlighten us on the whole birth certificate straw man thing, and do you agree or disagree that the method I gave about objecting to the commercial nexus would be the best way to win cases in courts today?
Well, for myself, I mean, you're asking for my my opinion. As far as I'm concerned, I don't fight anything anymore. I'm too old and too tired. I've been there and done that, so I don't fight anything anymore. If I got a ticket, which I probably won't because I don't drive anymore, but if I got a ticket or some kind of infraction, I just pay it, because I consider that there are more important things now in the world than worrying about paying a ticket and going through all of this menagerie of how the government really works and how courts really work. So I've kind of given up on worrying about it because it's way too far gone. It's extraordinarily. It's, where we are in the stream of time is like sitting in a lifeboat at 1 o'clock in the morning, about 2 blocks away from the Titanic, and she's 4/5 under, and we're waiting to watch the big event when she finally goes totally under. So that's where we are. So I've said it before, the only light at the end of the tunnel is a train coming. We're too far gone now to do anything about any of this. So the only thing I'm suggesting is that you just learn about it. Just understand how your world works, how the laws work, how the government works, so that you can operate within it, and understand for the first time that you are not free. You're not free. The sole idea of America being the land of the free and home of the brave. That's a long time ago. That's a silly comment from a long time ago. America's not free or brave. It is what it is. We are nothing more than slaves in a brilliantly conceived system. And I have to give the masters of this world at least their due, is that it is a brilliant system. It has allowed most people in the world, especially in the Western world, to live higher than the pharaohs of Egypt and the kings of Europe. We drive flashy new cars and eat steak dinners and watch television and fly around the world on vacation. So it's a brilliantly designed system. So I don't fight it anymore. I just try to educate people as to, just so that you know what you're doing. You at least understand. And I talked about, I think, maybe even on this show, where we get the word understand. It means quite literally to go downstairs, and if you're going to put a lot of weight on the second story, you go downstairs and look at the ceiling, remove the ceiling tiles and look at the foundation of the floor above you that you're going to put a lot of weight on and build on. And so what you're doing is you're standing under the foundation you're going to build on to get understanding. So unless and until you understand how the world is set up and how it actually works, but it's so brilliantly put together that people, generally speaking, are used to the routine. We are used to doing what we do. We pay our taxes. We go to work. We do all the things that we normally do from one day to the next as life has it, and never really understand what we're doing and why we do it. We just assume, like a normal child, when a baby is born, it has its own protocol that it learns as it's growing up. Things you do, things you don't do, and your parents are in charge, and you eat at a certain time. And so after a while, as you're growing up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6-year-old, you get to where you know what life is all about, and you do what you do, and when all the kids do the same thing. And so that's how we are. We are, our nation, America, in my opinion. I've just been looking at it for 55 years. I don't know. It's just my opinion. But I look at America like it's a kindergarten being run by Hell's Angels, because most people have no idea in the world who's in charge and how anything works and what the words mean. They have no concept of where things have come from and how things have developed. And they don't know the difference between the king is law or the law is king. So they don't really understand how this country was founded, what the words mean, why we have the institutions that we do. It's just a big morass of misunderstanding. And yet people, and yet to show you the brilliance of the system, it continues to work. People are going to work every day and eating and building and living their lives, and no one seems to have figured out what's really actually going on. And that's the brilliance of the system. Because there are people in this country who are very bright and extraordinarily well read, and they know that we Americans, like most people in the world, are nothing more than slave labor. We are not free. We haven't been free since I would say about 1830s is about the last time we tasted any freedom. And by 1848, we were finished. The United States of America was totally finished by 1848. And as we begin to go downhill and leave the original Constitution, the original Declaration of Independence, and by 1860s we were involved in a civil war, which meant that there is no longer any United States, period. You can't be united when one half is killing the other half. So there's nothing united about the states. Used to be, but not anymore. And so after the Civil War in about right around 1870, 71, it became apparent that the United States are no longer united. We've been destroyed. We don't even know what we're doing. We don't even know who we are anymore. All we're trying to do is stay alive. So some very bright people who had the money and the connections in Europe, they decided to make this place we call the States, the 48, to make this into a company, a corporation. And so they inaugurated something called the United States Corporation. And the history of it is overwhelming now. I started talking about this many years ago and giving lectures on it. And now today, if you go on and I wasn't the only one. There are many bright people out there many years ago talking about this. But today, it's all over the world now. Now it's everywhere. Just go on the web and to YouTube and type in, very simple, the U.S. is a corporation. The U.S. is a corporation. And and watch all the, quite literally hundreds of brilliant lectures on this subject. This way I don't have to explain anything to you. Go watch it for hours and days on brilliant people who have done their homework and research and find out how America really works, what we really are. We're not a democracy. Democracy we know is the worst form of government you could possibly have. And so what we started out to be was a republic, like the Roman Empire. Originally, it was a republic. Republic means it's guided by immutable laws. It's guided by laws that are chiseled in stone, and they have a constitution. And all people were subject to the law, and the laws were written out. Well, today, there is no law. There is only what the corporation says it is today. And so the way it worked is after 1871, there was a corporation, as I said, incorporated in Delaware. It's just a company. It's like any other corporation. General Motors, General Electric, Ford Motor Company. It's just a company. Well, and this was a municipal corporation, and they called it the United States Corporation. But there is a world of difference to any attorney and I would say constitutional attorneys know that there is a world of difference between being the United States or the United States of America. Totally different. And so the United States Corporation is just that. It's a company. It's a corporation. And all corporations, according to corporate law, all corporations must have a president, obviously. So we've got a president of the corporation. All corporations must have a vice president. That's corporate law. So we've got a vice president. All corporations must, by law, have a secretary-treasurer. So we got a secretary-treasurer. I mean, the very founding of the 13 colonies was a business. They were not called colonies; they were called companies. originally, because the whole idea, came out of India. The British India East India Trading Company is connected with the founding of America and the United States, and then from there it morphed into, after the Civil War, a different kind of corporation, and today it's just a business. That's all. Like the mafia tells you, we like it, nothing personal, but it's a business, and so when you understand how the business works and how the corporation works, the corporation is not empowered today. The United States is not empowered with laws. Laws come from a higher source, but corporations do have their own policy. I mean, if you're working for Ford Motor Company, Ford does whatever Ford wants and doesn't want with its employees is not God's law written in the heavens. No, it's just Ford. It's Ford's law. It's the Ford's what you might call their policy. His policy is you start work at 7 and you go home at 3 and you do this and you do that and you take off for lunch. Those are not God's laws, the immutable laws of the universe. No, they're just a policy. Sears has a policy, and Ford has a policy, and General Motors has a policy. Everybody that's a corporation has their own policy. So therefore, we have politicians who make the policy backed up by police. Police comes in the same word as policy, and the policy makers, we talk about the lawmakers, no, they're policy makers. So, when you begin to see how this whole entire United States today works, what it really is, then you begin to look at the courts and commerce and the banking and insurance companies and education, and my God, then you begin to wake up and realize what this really is all about and what's really going on in the world, because all governments around the world are corporations. And so you have corporate takeovers. You have one big corporation comes in and sees a corporation that used to be big but is losing money, and that corporation makes a deal where we'll buy you out and pay your stockholders off, and we'll buy you out. Well, if that corporation doesn't want to get bought out, well, we didn't ask if you wanted to get bought out. We're buying you out whether you like it or not, because you owe and you're not making any money. You're going in the hole. We've got billions, so we're going to buy you out like the mafia. We didn't ask you. And so if you put up a fight, well, then I have to kill you because we're going to take it over. So that's what's going on today around the world, as corporations are at each other's throat, big corporations and small ones, and it's just a business. The whole world is a business. Like they said in the movie 25, 30 years ago, Network. The whole world is just a business, Mr. Beale. It's money, it's corruption, graft. And like Michael Corleone said in Godfather 3, at the very end of the movie, Godfather 3, at the end of the movie, Michael says to his sister, when I was growing up, sis, he said, I used to think that the higher you go in the world, the higher up you go, the more correct and honest and lawful everything has to be. Now I find, he says, as a godfather, now I find it's just the opposite. The higher you go, the more dirty, filthy, pornographic, murderous, violent business really is at the top. And so and I thought, I know that. I've known that for years. So, basically what happened in 1871 is they made every man, woman, and child in America into a corporation. And I'm talking about something right now that I don't really know that well because that's not my subject. I'm far more interested in ancient theology and how it impacts our civilization today, religion generally speaking. But I'm not stupid. I understand how the world has developed, where it's come from thousands of years ago, the concepts and ideas of political systems and how they morphed and eventually became something totally different. and how the evolution of the etymology of words and terms and symbols we use today, where they've come from, all the secrets of secrets that the world operates on. So the bottom line is that about 1871, the every man, woman, and child was considered to be a company, a corporation. And my God, we could talk about this for hours. I don't even know where to really start, but doing the best I can off the top of my head. So every man, woman, and child is a corporation. And to give you an example, if I see you out with some girl one night and I tell you the next day, look at that girl you're with last night, she's bad company, and you say to me, mind your own business, and then I find out you're going to get married and she's going to be your partner, business, my company. We're talking business here. That's why when you get married, you have to have a license to get married. It's a business. One corporation is going to do business with another corporation. And you can do that. That's just called business. But of course, it's none of my business. That's your business. And so any corporation I'm dealing with, that's my business, not yours. And so that's where we get our terms and words from, because each one of us is a corporation. And and there's two of you, incidentally. There's a corporate you and the real you. The real you is a personal man with a flesh and blood man. But you will find that there is no law on the book anywhere in this world that refers to you and includes you as a man, as a living man, a woman, a child. There is no law, especially in America. No law applies to anyone in this country, period. It only the actual words of the laws in the law books will tell you only corporations are subservient to the law. The law only applies to corporations, period. End of sentence. Therefore, obviously, there must be two of you. There must be the real you, the flesh and blood you, which is private. And then there is the legal or lawful you that can be brought to court. You're doing business. Now we're talking money and business. It's the business of life. So to give you an example, if what I do with you privately, if we go somewhere, we're talking, I'm buying dinner, you're buying this and that, this is all private between you and I. Nobody knows this, nobody else's business. But if you and I are going to join into some corporate business where we're going to open up some kind of a business, it's going to be a large business between you and I. Now we're talking legality. Now we're talking, that it's a corporate business now. It's not private. Now it's public. And so now I cannot come over to your home if you owe me $500. I cannot come to your home and steal $500 from you or do anything to you. No, that's private. Person to person, man to man. I can't do that. That's against the law. But I can sue you in court. That's the public you, the business you. So there's two of you. There's the public you, which anybody can sue, and you'll have to get licenses from the government to do business with people. If you're going to get married, you got to have a license. Why? Because you're getting ready to do business. It may be monkey business. It may be a very bad business, but you're getting ready to do business. And if the business doesn't work out, you're not going to go to God. You're going to court. You better bring your house and your car and your money and everything you own, because it's just business. So the way it works is very simple. And a classic example, too, about how commerce works that people have no idea in the world. And I'll get back to this whole thing about birth certificate in a minute. But suppose, just to give you an example, the way your commercial system in America works, commerce. Suppose you were a painting contractor. Did I tell you this the last time we talked?
To my knowledge, no, not this specific
Okay.
thing.
Okay, I know people always saying Jordan Maxwell repeats himself. Well, I know, but you remember what Jordan Maxwell said because he said it 5 times. But anyway, suppose you were a painting contractor and I hire you to paint my office, and you give me a price of say $100 to paint the office. Okay, the way it works in commerce in America, the business. This is not personal. This is business. Is you give me you do the job, then you come to me and you give me a bill and you write it up on paper. It's written up on paper and dated, a bill, and the bill is for $100. Okay, I reach into my pocket and I pull out $100 bill and I give it to you, and you are happy because I paid you. There it is. You wanted 100, I give you 100. I didn't give you anything. I gave you $100 bill because you gave me a bill for $100. I gave you $100 bill. If you had given me a bill for $20, I'd give you a $20 bill. Get it? It's a bill. You owe me. So the $100 piece of paper I have in my wallet is a bill. It's a bank note, and you owe me $100. That's the way it works. And so therefore, I have not paid the bill, because any attorney will tell you, you cannot in America pay a bill. We say things like that, I got to pay this bill, that. No. In actual court language, you cannot pay a bill. You can discharge a debt, but you cannot pay a bill. So when you give me a bill for $100, I'll give you a $100 bill. Now you owe me $100. The idea is now like a bank account. We're talking about bank account. So we have now an account between you and I. I owe you $100, and you owe me $100. So we're even. And now you go back out and take that $100 bill, and you pay somebody else. And so the bottom line is, at the end of the day, no one has paid anyone for nothing. Nobody's paid anybody. Everybody has neutralized their debt. And so at the bottom line is that you cannot do anything with your house or your car or anything you want to do, because you do not own your car. You do not own your house, your home. You don't own your apartment or your condo. You don't actually, in point of fact, in a court of law, you do not own nothing, because you never paid for anything. You neutralize the debt by giving the debt to someone else, but you actually never actually put out gold and silver coins to the amount that you owe on your car and bought it with gold or silver or any way that is acceptable internationally, worldwide, as paying for something. So since you never paid for your car, you only neutralize the debt with paper, then you don't actually, in fact, own the car. That's why every year you have to pay the lease on the car. Anytime you buy a car, it's owned by the bank, and ultimately it's owned by the government. And so you get a pink slip, and the pink slip shows that you don't own it. You're merely the person that's using it, and you are neutralizing the debt by your money each month that you pay. It's an extraordinary subject of how banking works. And where do we find banks? We find banks on each side of a river. It's called river bank. And what does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency, because your money is referred to in law as a currency. And so, because it's a current, it's an ebb and flow. It comes in, it goes out, comes in, it goes out. So it's a current. And so once you understand that your money is like water, actually, in point of fact, it's called maritime admiralty. Maritime meaning of the sea. So your money is maritime admiralty finance. It's water. So we say, money goes through your hands like water. No, In point of fact, before the judge, money is water. Period. Your money is referred to as a liquid asset, cash flow. And when you begin to, nail all of this down, how the world works and what your money really is, and what your bank statement really is, and what your government actually is, none of this makes sense to anyone. That's why the whole country is in trouble financially and educationally, and in trouble with the law, because they don't know how the world actually works. And so when you begin to see that there's a whole world of dark knowledge, secrets, secret words and terms, and you go into a court, and why do you go to a court? You play tennis on a court, play basketball on a court. How do you play tennis on a court? You play with a racket. Get it? And so when you're in a court, the whole idea in a court is to put the ball back in the other guy's court. And so anytime you've got a tennis match or a basketball match, you've got to have a referee. You've got to have somebody make sure everybody's playing by the rules. So in a court, you're playing, putting the ball back in the other guy's court. Why? Because you've got one team on the one side, that's a team of lawyers, and they are opposing the other guy he has his team. So you got two teams bouncing the ball back and forth, and the judge is wearing a black robe because he is now what do they call it? He's calling the shots. He's making sure everybody plays by the same rules. So that's all he's doing. He doesn't care. He's going to get paid anyway. It doesn't matter. But he's like the referee is the word I was looking for. He's like a referee. He's just sitting there watching both sides argue back and forth and make sure they're all doing it correctly according to the corporate rules and regulations. And so therefore you're going to be charged. Well, that's what you do when you walk in and plug something into the wall. You're plugging into the circuit. So therefore you got a circuit judge in a circuit court, and you're going to plug in. But why? Because you've been charged. And you're sticking your finger in the light plug, and you're going to get charged. And all law, all crime, and this is something most people have never heard. All crime, including a deliberate first-degree murder, all crime is in commerce, according to, and ask any good federal lawyer or any judge, look it up in a book, you will find all crime, period, no matter how, from the smallest to the greatest, is considered commerce. It's business, period. It's bad business. It's treacherous business. It's sneaky business. It's dishonest business. But all crime, no matter what you do, is by law a commercial venture, and therefore you have to pay for your crime. Pay? Yeah, you have to pay. And so you got to pay your debt to society. Why? Because your body, your physical body is a battery. And your body is a battery. That's what causes you to live. Your heart's beating because of an electrical impulse. Your muscles move because of an electrical impulse. Your whole body is alive because of electricity. It's called bioelectrical. Well, since your body is a bioelectrical unit, and you're like 80 to 90% water, therefore you are a battery. And therefore, when you go to court, they're going to put you in a cell. That's what they do. They call it a battery. They put you in a cell. And so when you walk into a court, you're going to be operating under a system that you don't understand. It's called Maritime Admiralty law. That's why when you walk into a courtroom, you will see a fence and a little gate. And so the people who want to see what's going on are waiting waiting for the court. They sit outside. They sit in the seats. And then inside the gate is the judge and the officials that work with the judge. but there's a gate there. There's a fence and a gate. And so why? Well, because there's always been a fence and a gate between the waters of the oceans and the land. Water can only go so far, and it stops. And that's the way it is. That's the way life is. Water will only come so far. You go down to the beach and watch it. It only comes in so far and stops. And so where it stops, it's called a sandbar. And the water stops and it builds up a sandbar, and its undertow builds up what is called a sandbar. And so there's a wooden gate, and at the top of the gate is a piece of wood going across the top of the gate, and so therefore that's the sandbar. It's a bar. It's barring you from going into the water, because once you pass that bar, and incidentally, you're not licensed to pass the bar. But once you are called and you get up and you put your hand on that bar, on that gate, you open up the gate. That's called a floodgate. You are now opening your floodgates so that you can now enter into maritime admiralty law. Now we say you're in hot water, and somebody needs to bail you out. And so now you are going to be charged, and you're going to be put in a cell if you can't pay the debt. And so the whole idea of our political, economic, and cultural system is based on hidden symbols and emblems and words and terms, and especially concepts that we've never been told about.
And Jordan, I'd like you to get to the birth certificate thing, and just 20 minutes left on the live feed. After this whole court thing, there's a couple of things I want to talk about regarding like antiquity and like Noah's Ark and all that, and the Ice Age, just so you know.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because I could go on talking about this stuff for hours. Yeah, I know.
It's cool.
So anyway, what else can we talk about?
Yeah, well, tell everybody about how the birth certificate thing works, and then I'd like to get to that other stuff. You didn't mention that yet. Quickly, all business is based on water, because all money is water. So all business is based on water, period. And therefore, when a ship from Japan, say, comes to Los Angeles, bringing $8 million worth of Toyotas or TVs or whatever, that ship comes in on water. And therefore, when the ship docks, it docks at it's parked. It's where the ship parks is called its berth, berth. It's berth. So it's called berthing a ship. And all captains call their ships she. She's a good ship. She's very seaworthy. She's this and she's that. All captains, airline captains, any kind of a captain always calls his vehicle a she. That's the law. So all ships are she. And when she comes in, she parks at her berth. And each item on that ship coming off represents money coming off the ocean, coming off the water. All those cars and TVs or whatever. Each one has to have its own certificate of manifest, its own paperwork. Does it have 2 doors or 4 doors? What color is it? How big a screen is it? So each one of the articles coming off that ship represents business, money, coming in off of water. So therefore, she is in her berth, and each item she brings to the world has to have its own certificate. So it's called a birth certificate. And so when you were born, you have a birth certificate, because your mother, your father was the man, M-A-N, the manufacturer, and your mother was in labor building the new item, the new item, which is you. And so therefore you are coming in on your mother's water. And when her water broke, you came out into life. So therefore your mother was in labor building you off of water. And your father, being your father, was the manufacturer. And so therefore you have to have a birth certificate, and it has to be signed by the dock. The dock has to sign your birth certificate. That's right, because the ship is sitting at the dock. So when it's all part of a commercial, occult
mystical, dark system of words and terms and symbols that I just have always felt to be very interesting, and
Yeah,
I thought it's
Jordan, I want to ask,
it's something that we all need to know.
Do you subscribe to the idea that a birth certificate is actually a death certificate because capital letters, like they put capital letters on gravestones, so therefore, and also because corporation is related to the word corpse, which symbolizes death. So is the birth certificate actually a death certificate?
Well, that's true, but see, as I told you, there's two of you. There's a private you and a corporate you. The corporate you is always denoted in law as in capital letters. You will never get a bill from Sears or from the gas company or from an insurance company or anything. You will never get a bill for anything in your life that your name is not in all capital letters. You will never get a bill from anybody. If you get a bill from anything, for a gas company or insurance lawsuit, it must be in all capital letters, period. That's the law. And therefore, that all capital letters represents a corporation. That's why when you die, you're a corpse. Why? Because when you go by a graveyard, you'll see all the names of the corporations that are now defunct. They're not in business anymore. They're out of business. But they're in all capital letters because they were a corporation. Now they are a corpse. So it's all part, and this is the kind of thing we could go and talk for 5 hours. But I'm just bringing to your attention that everything is based on water, and therefore the only thing on water that works is a ship. So therefore you have a citizenship, relationship, a dealership, scholarship. Everything's ship. So just wake up and understand that the whole world you operate under in America and around the world has nothing to do with anything you think it does. It's a whole hidden system.
There's no question about that. I'd like to talk about, let's try to kill two birds with one stone here. I remember listening to your Richie Allen interviews, and you actually talked about how the story of Noah is based on a previous story, the Epic of Gilgamesh story. You said there was no Noah and there was no great flood. Well, I must say I disagree with that there was no flood thing, because countless cultures from the past do talk about some sort of a flood. And also, I'm currently reading Michael Tsarian's book, Atlantis, Alien Visitation and Genetic Manipulation. Yeah. You actually have a quote on one of the outside cover of the books basically praising the book. And one of the interesting things that Michael Tsarian says in that book is that 13,000 years ago, about that time, it said that we had the end of an ice age and there was a horrible global catastrophe. But Tsarian asserts, no, there was actually no ice age. That's one of history's biggest lies. It was just like some sort of a pole shift or something. So the idea that there either was or was not a flood, agree or disagree, and why do you agree or disagree with that? And also the idea of whether there was an ice age, like Tsarian claims there wasn't. What do you have to say about all that?
Okay, all over the world, there's overwhelming, in-your-face, obvious proof that virtually nobody refutes that there were great, huge floods, and I do mean enormous floods. But there was no worldwide covering of the earth, as the Bible says, over a mile higher than the highest mountaintop. And so that Noah had to send out a bird to see if there was any land showing anywhere. Well, that is ludicrous on the face of it, scientifically speaking. There's never been a flood that covered the highest mountain on the earth. It's ludicrous. But there has obviously been enormous floods that swept over whole continents. So there's no problem with understanding great floods. What I actually said is that there's never been ever a flood which covered the earth, so that the highest mountain on the earth was underwater. That's ludicrous on the face of it and doesn't even need to be discussed. It's unscientific and it's stupid. But that there has been massive floods, I don't have any problem with that. It's all over the world. I mean, even the Sphinx in Egypt as water eroded. We find seashells. I don't know if you know this, but there's seashells on the Great Pyramid in Egypt. So if there's salt and seashells at the top of the pyramids in Egypt, something must have happened where the seashells got onto the pyramid Obviously, there have been monstrous floods, but there's no flood that covered the whole earth and covered the highest mountain, so that you'd have to send out a bird to even find out if there's any land. That's ludicrous. That's what I said. Does that make any sense?
That's fair enough. I'm glad you got to clarify that. Getting back to one thing about law again. I remember in a talk you did, like there's this 4-hour video on YouTube I saw where you and some guy named Victor with a last name I couldn't possibly pronounce.
Victor Marjabanian.
And at the end of that talk, you talked about becoming a sovereign. Now, the whole thing about becoming a sovereign, a lot of people will say, well, all the things you got to do for that, like get rid of Social Security and abolish your birth certificate, all that stuff. A lot of people that have tried to do that, once they become a quote-unquote sovereign, they find that they can't do anything in the real world because
that's exactly right.
Yeah, so do you think
right.
it's okay, so the process that you suggested that people follow to become a sovereign, if you agree with that, then by all means tell us what you think they should do, or have you maybe retracted your take on people possibly doing something like that?
Yes, well, see, I realized that when I first heard it, I knew in my gut that we all are sovereigns. When you were born and came out of your mother, nobody owned you. The universe didn't own you. God owns you, so you're free. Now, of course, you're going to be brought into your government, all the man-made stuff that's been here over everybody from for thousands of years, and you're going to be susceptible to it. But in point of fact, actually speaking, you are sovereign because your mother gave birth to you. The government didn't build you. The government didn't give you life. The government doesn't, is not your creator. God is your creator, so to speak. And so, therefore, I understood the idea of sovereignty, but there are different ways of going about it. And all the ways that normal people go about getting into sovereignty, they end up in prison. They end up broke and in prison or in jail. There is one way you can become totally disassociated with the federal government if you wish, and it's perfectly lawful and legal. If you want to drop out of the corporation called the United States Corporation, in Washington, D.C., you can become a state citizen. A state citizen goes back to 1776 and to the founding of America, where everyone in this country were members of their own state. There was no federal citizenship. There was only state. So people asking you say, I'm a Texan. I'm from Texas. I'm from Colorado. And therefore you were under the law of Colorado. You're under the law of California. You were a state citizen. But in 1871, the states have been killing each other, so there was one corporation now, and it's a privately owned company, and it's called the United States Corporation. So now, no longer were you a member of a state, you are now an employee of a foreign corporation called United States Corporation. So you can still today be a state citizen. Go on the web and read and type in statecitizenship.org. State citizen or statecitizenship.org. And it will tell you all about how to become a state citizen, which removes you from the federal jurisdiction forever, period. And no longer does the federal government have anything whatsoever to do with you, period. No laws affect you, no laws apply to you, period. But there's, the devil is in the details. When you do that, you have just committed suicide, because you are now totally free of the federal system, and the federal government has no jurisdiction over you. And that means, as translated to mean, no more driver's license, no more car registration, no more of this, no more of that. You can't get insurance. Nobody, and I do mean and emphasize, nobody is going to hire you. And nobody is going to do any business with you, because you are a freak. You are mentally deranged freak. You don't have to pay taxes. You don't have to pay fines and tickets. You don't have to do anything in the federal system because you're out of it. And you're perfectly lawful and legal, and the government agrees with it. But nobody out there in the country is going to hire you. Nobody's going to understand what you're doing. So you might as well, if you're not Donald Trump with hundreds of millions of dollars in actual cash in your hand, then you better stay a federal citizen, because there's going to be no insurance, there'll be no driver's license, no registration. And what happens to you if you go out to drive in your car as a state citizen? You're going to get stopped as soon as you go out because you have no license and no driver's license and no insurance, and you're going to be put in jail. And then after jail, 6 weeks or 2 months later, you'll finally get into court, and you will show the judge that you are, in point of fact, lawfully a state citizen, and the court will say, yes, we agree with you. Sorry that you were arrested, and you can go. You're free to go because you are a state citizen. And then when you go out to your car to drive home, you will get stopped because you have no license, and they will arrest you. And from here on out, for the rest of your life, you're going to spend it in court telling judges and showing judges that you're a state citizen. So my idea, my thinking is you're lost because you cannot operate in America. You can't have a job in America. You can't have a bank account. You can have no credit cards. You can do no business with anybody because you're not in the corporation. Period. You're not in the corporation. The company called United States does not acknowledge you. You are a state citizen. So I hope you got a lot of money and stay home, because if you go out, you're going to get arrested, because the people out there, the cops out there on the street, they don't know beans to bullshit about any state citizen. All they know is that they are told if there's no license on that car, arrest him. Period. They don't care about state citizenship. They can't even read, most of them, so they don't care about state citizenship.
I know what you're talking about. I got pulled over in Arizona not that long ago, and I tried to say I'm not operating in a commercial capacity. The officer didn't know what I was talking about, so I spent 30 hours in jail, and I'm currently trying to work that whole thing out, but that's another story.
Okay, so there it is.
I see.
That's my point.
Okay, but anyway, we got a caller in the queue, area code 601. You are on the air. What's your name, where you're from, what's your question? 5 minutes till the live feed is up, just so you know. Oh, he just dropped off. I guess he didn't want to...
Scared him. We scared him.
Okay, I didn't mean to do that. But anyway, we got time for one more subject. I have to ask you to do this really quickly on the fly here, because you only got 4 minutes, 45 seconds to the live feed. Well, you can go past a little past an hour if you want to. But I've heard you say the mafia controls the government and the Vatican controls the mafia. Could you quickly give the smoking gun proof that that statement is true?
Well, I'm talking about corporations. The United States Corporation is a Vatican corporation. It's based on British East India Corporation. It's based on something that happened back in the 9th century, 10th century. The Vatican became a corporation, a company. Even Islam today, Islam is a corporation. It's a company. It has owners. People don't know anything about this, never heard of it, and we don't have a whole lot of time. But the country, the United States is a company. It's a corporation. The Vatican is a corporation. Israel is a company, a corporation on the stock market. Islam is a corporation, a company on the stock market. And so it's all corporations. And so we want everybody to cooperate because it's all cooperations. So, but that's a big story. But what the last couple of minutes, I would like to say that if people are interested to learn more from me and my work, go on my website, Jordan Maxwell Show, SHOW.com. That's Jordan Maxwell Show.com, because there's another website out there called JordanMaxwell.com, which does not belong to me. It was taken from me 5 years ago, and it doesn't belong to me. So people are sending money to donate and buying videos and books and stuff off of JordanMaxwell.com. And for 5 years, it's never come to me. So it does not belong to me. Stay away from JordanMaxwell.com. If you want to talk to me or see my work, go to JordanMaxwellShow.com. That's where I am. Again, I want to thank you for letting me be on your show.
You're very welcome. And just because we got 2 minutes left, one more thing I just want to bring up. You said back in the in many of your talks actually that why is the number 13 unlucky? And you said it has something to do with Jesus being the 13th apostle, so to speak. And I was scratching my head, I must admit, after I heard that, because I really don't see how that has anything to do with not being lucky. So could you please enlighten me and what you meant by that?
Yeah. What I said is that Jesus has 12 apostles. That's why you have 12 jurors in a jury room in a court, because you have 12 jurors because they're going to help bring the truth to light. And Jesus said, I am the light and the truth and the light. Well, you're going to bring the truth to light with 12 apostles or 12 jurors. And so Jesus represented the master, and he has 12 followers. And so the 12 and 1 make 13. So 13 is a perfect number for government. And in the ancient numerology, 13 is perfect government. Perfect government is Jesus governing the world with his 12 apostles, which is actually the sun, S-U-N, with his 12 signs of the zodiac, or 12 months of the year. So the 12 months of the year plus their master, the sun, makes 13. So 13 is a perfect number for government. And so that's why the United States had to be originally, the original revolution, American Revolution, had to happen in 1776, because in Hebrew and Jewish numerology, 8, the number 8 is the number of new beginnings. It's the only number that you can write over and over and over without lifting your pen from the paper, an 8, and therefore you turn an 8 sideways, it becomes infinity. So infinity is running back and forth, making an 8. So 8 is the number of new beginnings. You're always starting over again on that 8. And 76, 1 in 7, 1776. 1 in 7 is 8, and 7 in 6 is 13. So the great thinkers, the great philosophers who founded America knew we're going to start something new, which is 8, and it's going to be based on Jesus and his 12 apostles, called Christian civilization. So it's going to have to be in 1776. We're going to have the revolution. It's all well thought out by secret societies that founded America. That's a very big story, and most people think it's crazy because they've never heard it before. So I don't care if you've never heard it before. That's the name of the tune. That's where it came from. 13 is an unlucky number, but the reason why 13 is an unlucky number is a different reason. That has the head of the Knights Templars, Jacques de Molay, was put to death in France on Friday the 13th. That's where the unlucky comes from. 13 has always been a very important number, but Jacques de Molay, the head mason of the Knights Templars, was put to death in France, in Paris, on Friday the 13th. That's why Friday the 13th is unlucky. Well, it's real unlucky for Jacques de Molay, so that's why the Masonic Order of Knights Templars even today say 13 is an unlucky number. No, 13 originally was based on Jesus and his 12 founding a great society or a great government we call a Christian, Judeo-Christian civilization. It's a big story, and I know we don't have much more time.
No, we don't. There is one caller in the queue. Would you like to take this caller if you have something to...
Sure.
All right. Caller in the queue, your number is 111-111-1111. What's your name, where you're from, what's your question? Or were you just listening? I'm about to end the show after this, so going once.
Well, the 111, that scares me. That sounds like CIA.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? Okay, sorry, going twice. You are, sorry. All right. Well, this show is going to come to an end, and Jordan, boy, it seems really exceptionally emotional to be telling you. I'm about to tell you now, especially since there are so many other things that I could talk about with you. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not like it has to be on my show, because like with Richie Allen and all the other people we've interviewed, people could always consult other sources. But Jordan, it pains me to tell you that Well, you are indeed a fascinating individual, and I have no doubt that there's no question I could certainly do other shows with you. But, Jordan, ever since I started doing the show, one of my goals with this show has always been to try to get as many different guests on my show as possible before I give any one specific guest double dips, because I felt that was always the fairest, most impartial, and most informative way of doing a radio show that seeks to expose the true and false nature of reality. Now, if you ever want to come on a radio show to talk about something, by all means, give me a holler, and I can certainly give you another hour show. But as far as me asking you or any of my other previous guests that I've given a full 2 hours of showtime on, I regret to inform you I probably won't be asking you to come on again, but that's only because I need to give thousands of other fascinating individuals the chance to have some glory on my show. But believe me, I will make sure that I combine this interview with the one we did this past Friday. I will upload it to YouTube within the next couple days. There's no question that just like all of the YouTube videos where you're the talker, it's going to get probably well over 10,000 views. And I do hope that people will definitely be able to take something from this, because I certainly learned a couple of things that I don't think I've learned from some of your previous talks and lectures that I've listened to. So, Jordan, I wish you the best of luck. You say you don't think you have much time left, but it is one of my wishes has always been that the New World Order will see its end before Jordan Maxwell passes away. I've actually told people that, and I hope that does come true.
Yeah, so, I kind of feel the same way, and I want to thank you for having me on.
It was a pleasure. Take care, Jordan. Good luck. Sleep well.
Yeah.
Drive. Well, you don't drive anymore. You admit that. So take care. I will.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. So long. Well, folks, that is the end of this show. Next Wednesday, I will be having Brad Johnson, who channels the extraterrestrial entity known as Dronus. Be seeing him next Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Brad Johnson, ET contactee. That is the end of this show. This is Andrew Fisher signing off from Nature of Reality Radio. Namaste, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your trek throughout infinite consciousness.